I like Goodhue. We'll move on to the lowly Highlanders. I mean,
Carlos,
all right. So they're coming last in the New Zealand Conference. 1 win, 4 losses, and a draw. So
and that
not
draw
much
was
to write home.
That draw was it was
they were not kidding.
a forced draw for them against the Jaguares. When I remember waking up in the Rocky Soliola, checking up my updates on my points, and hey, when did this game get cancelled? Oh no, I saw a buy. On my players. I was going, I'm sure my Highlanders already had a buy, man. What's going on here? And then sure enough, cancellation. But I think the Highlanders are another team that have been hit with a lot of player movement, especially players that have finished up last year. And that's mentioning guys like Waisake Naholo, massive loss in Ben Smith, Luke Whitelock, their formidable leader, Liam Squire, and Elliot Dixon, and then also Tyrell Lomax, who moved to the Hurricanes. So those are just a name.
I didn't realize the losses were that much here, but that's quite a substantial list.
Yeah, and so no excuses as to the results this year, but that's a massive factor as to why they would have not been able to sort of front up against some other experienced teams. But that's a huge list of experience that I've just named off there. That without them, especially Ben Smith, he used to. Again, he was someone of X factor. Didn't look like much. When he first came onto the scene, but a player that's well ingrained in the folklore down in Highlanders rugby, let alone All Blacks.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about their captain choice, James Lynches or whatever you call him, at either Aaron Smith or Shannon Frizzell.
I think when you're looking at the captaincy, when they had guys like Manu prior to him and then Luke Whitelock of that loose forward lock mould, James Lynches fits that same, and he's like a stalwart down those parts where he's been in part of the Highlander franchise since 2015, and I think in his late 20s as well. So he's got a bit of experience behind him with Super Rugby, and I think with the loss when Luke Whitelock moved on, and he was always going to be one of those potential players to fill in that captaincy role. But another hard-nosed, forward-thinking sort of loose forward. Unfortunate to have lost him a couple of weeks before the lockdown with that horrendous injury.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up Shannon Frizzell because he's an All Black guy, but I don't know, he hasn't been that good this season. So I mean, I'm just looking at the Highlanders. They've got some stats here. They're coming last in carrying meters, and I think they're running 2 lateral. So I'm not going to put that too much on Frizzell. They're trying to play with all this width and all the rest of it, but they also last in carries. And I think they're looking at Frizzell. He's supposed to be their ball carrier. He's supposed to be the guy who gets them on the front foot. And I'm not sure that he's done it, or they haven't given him enough chances to do it. I mean, sort of a mix of both, but he's nowhere near the player he was when he was on the All Blacks. So, I mean, if I was to pick an All Black team now, I probably wouldn't pick him. But I mean,
I think Frizzell will always be in the fringes. I think he's always going to be there in the conversations. But yeah, whether he would be a first pick, I'm not sure. But I think a guy that they really New Zealand, not only New Zealand rugby, but definitely Highlanders would have lost out on was the like of Jackson Hemapol, who was just sort of making headways in the All Blacks, but then he chose to take up a contract in Japan. Whether he comes back into the fold for next year, because I hear Japanese rugby's all but not going ahead this year. So it'll be interesting to see what his movements is for next year.
Yeah. I think with Hemopor, because they lost Paddy Parkinson. He got injured for long parts of the season, and Josh Dixon is another guy who's been injured, and Jack Whedon as well. So they've had locking issues, and that Hemopor leaving that makes it far worse. So I've got some more stats here. That the Highlanders are 13th in lineouts won, so they're having massive line-out issues, and what you talked about with him and the locking is a big part of that. So, yeah, I agree with that call. You know, one thing I wanted to ask you guys, because they're running dead last by quite a significant margin at the New Zealand conference. So, what are you guys' thoughts on Aaron Major? He's the coach there. Would you be? Would you give?
I don't think they'll be pushing the panic button anytime soon, because when you look at Aaron Major, this is his first time sort of taking charge. Because I think he's just finding his way in Super Rugby. He's done a lot of assistance role, but I think with Tony Brown there as well. Is Tony Brown there? Is Tony Brown not there?
I think he was.
Yeah, I think. Can't remember now. But I think Aaron Majors, again, with those names that they've lost in the previous year, I think it'll just be a bit of time before they sort of find their way and get some better results. But at the same time, still, there would have been 10 more matches, so it's really hard to say how things would have eventuated. Be interesting if they get a full season next year. I think that's where they'll get a good feel as to whether Aaron Major's got the goods to foot it with Super Rugby coaches.
Yeah, sweet. Joy, I'll come to you next, brother, because I know you've got some stuff to sort through. So, what's your final thoughts on the Highlanders, and who's really stood out for you in terms of the players, good or bad?
One guy that's stood out for me has been Liam Coltman at hooker. He's a real grafter, and he's also got a good throw on him. I like his throwing; has been consistent. In terms of what I think the Highlanders need to do moving forward, they need to really knuckle down on who the core group is going to be. Their core group of guys that they see playing week out, and build around those guys. There's guys like Ash Dixon, who's on the bench more often than not, staying for a starting spot. With the guys in front of them, you've got who else have you got? You've got Josh Ioane over there in the second five. He's looking to get another All Black jersey under his belt. You've got the 9-10 combination, which is Aaron Smith and Mitch Hunt. They need to really gel and really direct the game moving forward. And I think Mitch Hunt needs to step up and really direct the forwards as well as the backs. And they need to support the captain. You know, James Lynch. They need to get around him and actually start producing some results by learning from these losses. You know, until they learn from the losses, it's just going to keep losing. It's easy for the finger to be pointed at. I think they need to just learn from the losses, build around the core group of guys, and the wins will come.
Yeah, I like that call on Mitch Hunt, because they hit Josh Ioane, who was he played a game for the All Blacks last year, and he was the Highlanders' first five. So I thought they had a good first five. So I'm surprised that they made that change with Mitch Hunt and moving him to and moving Ioane to 12. So I know you got to go stuff, but if I know you got to go. So what you got any last thoughts on that before you shoot off?
I'd like to see Josh Ioane back in the 10 jersey. I mean, that's how he made the All Blacks. I don't know what they're doing there. New Zealand Super Rugby teams, we tend to do that, eh? We have guys who make teams and their Super Rugby team plays them in a total different position. I don't know if there's guidance there from the All Blacks management for them to see him in the 12 jersey, but it baffles me why they do that.
Yep. No, good call. You know, I'm just looking at the Highlanders. They're second in yellow cards. They're coming last in offloads and last in meters carried, last in run meters. So I'm not shocked that they're coming where they're coming, but I mean, for a team that's been pretty good of recent years, that's sort of it's a big fall from grace, even given the guys that they've lost. So yeah, Joe, I know you've got some stuff to do, so I'll let you go, brother. But thanks for your contributions, and we'll finish off to the next round, and that's us.
Looking forward to the next
Oh, Joey.
Sweet.
Okay, brothers.
Cheers, brother.
Take care, Joey. Fuck.
Right, what you got any last words you want to add on the Highlanders before we move on to the last category?
Yeah, I think for me, the Highlanders, going on their recent form of previous years, the last 5 years, when was their championship year? 2016, was it?
Yeah, I think 2016 is correct. I think they beat the Canes that year, 2016. Yep.
And but I think they'll be a team, that'll just rebuild and just build on the inexperienced players that they have at the moment, with the little few experienced players. And obviously, Aaron Smith is going to be a massive part of that. Despite the captaincy going the way of James Lynch's, I think it's probably so that Aaron Smith can just concentrate on his normal game. And he was coming off the bench as well a couple of times in the earlier part of that. And with the just sort of like, easing him into the beginning of the Super Rugby. But it was always going to be interesting with Mitch Hunt here. He was discarded from the Crusaders, and he's obviously going for a bit more game time down in the Highlanders. But Highlanders have always had a decent squad in recent years, and I think it'll be only a matter of time before they sort of come back to par with some of the other super teams.
Oh, that's an interesting thought. I know we've brought up a lot of historical evidence, and historically, the Highlanders have been probably the weakest New Zealand team overall. And I see that.
I disagree. I disagree.
I'm not talking about the last 10 years. I'm talking about the whole 25 years. I think that the Highlanders. I can't back that up with stats, but I think the Highlanders have been the weakest New Zealand team, and I think they're going to stay there for a long time. That's my final conclusion. But I do think Aaron Smith, I think he's tried a bit too hard, but to me, he's probably been one of the standouts. And Joy brought up the guys in the front row who have also been good, and I agree with that. I'm going to pull a Steve Hansen move now, and we're going to finish off by calling in some of the subs. So Joy's moved off, and we'll call in Eyes just for this last couple of segments. The last segment.
Yeah.
So the last segment, we've probably gone a bit longer than I thought, but there's a lot to unpack in the 7 or 8 rounds of Super Rugby. So the last topic was the Australia. I wanted to combine Australia and South Africa because that's not really our area of expertise. So the Australia and South Africa conference. So if I pull up the overall standings, we've got the Sharks who in first, the Brumbies in second. And then we've got the Stormers and the Jaguares. Those are the only other teams in the top 8. So, I'll come to you, Eyes, if you're there. What are you made of either or, the Oz or the South African conference? Or what's your initial impressions of those two conferences, and what stood out for you in either of those two conferences?
Oh, well, thank you, brother, for coming back to me, mate.
Thanks for putting you on the spot. Yep.
No, I can honestly say that I think that I don't think any of those teams. There's probably one from each competition that would have given the Crusaders, Chiefs, or the Blues a run. I think that.
I agree with two of those
yeah,
three teams.
That was tough for me to say that, but
yep.
I just think that the standard of rugby, the way that we've been beating the other teams, the New Zealand teams,